Hello, and welcome to Cannabis the Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tori. Each episode will feature a candid conversation about how the cannabis plant has positively impacted individuals' wellness and bliss. Here to honor the plant and have fun. Welcome back, Cannabis listeners. Tonight I have on Donna Shield. She is co-founder of the Holistic Cannabis Academy. She's worked with professionals across the US and Canada the last 5 years. She is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, passionate about filling in this education gap for canna-curious consumers and health professionals as well. And she's contributor to the Cannabis Kitchen Cookbook. Did I cover it all, Donna?
Yes, you did. That was a perfect intro.
All right. Well, I like to just jump into your personal history. And well, first of all, you were a major in the Army. And so I'm just curious to know sort of what the climate was during that time and your particular views on the cannabis plant.
Well, back in the day when I was in the military, which I did right out of college as part of my training as a registered dietitian, believe me, there was no discussion going on about cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, coming out of college, cannabis was something everyone used recreationally. There wasn't much thought given to its medicinal use, at least in my circles. But, I went on to have a career in nutrition and marketing and the culinary world. And what really led me to what I'm doing now was a breast cancer diagnosis. And I find, the more you talk to people who are working in the cannabis or hemp space and people who are real advocates, it's usually a personal story that took them down that path.
Exactly. That diagnosis led you to move to Boulder. You were interested in cannabis medicine, learning about the industry. So, just what was that? What was that all about for you? Did you go to cannabis right away? Did you try some other modalities?
Well, I actually did all of my breast cancer care in South Florida, where I was living at the time. And because I had access to the VA, having been in the military, I actually had wonderful care. The VA gets knocked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My personal experience was fabulous. And so it was a combination of surgeries and radiation. I was lucky enough to skirt chemotherapy, but during that time, I was talking to the oncologists and the breast surgeons about cannabis as part of the overall care plan. And of course, they're looking at me like I have three heads.
Right.
And so it was at that point I started thinking, no one in the professional community really understands this plant. And, so I started thinking about that a little bit more and used cannabis myself in conjunction with those other conventional treatments, radiation and surgeries, as well as a very intense ketogenic diet, as well as a lot of yoga, energy work. I was just layering everything I could because we never do know what the secret sauce is, what's the best combination that's going to lead us down that healing path. And so for me, I really felt that it was this layering of all these different modalities that was going to be the best path for me. And once all of my treatment was over, I did move out to Colorado. And initially, I thought I was going to work in the food industry because that's the world I had come from. And then the more I got into learning about cannabis and talking to researchers and clinicians out here in Colorado who are really doing the day-to-day work with clients, I just thought, there is such an opportunity here in the education space to develop a curriculum, a program that no matter what kind of practitioner you are, you really need to know about this. And so that was really the genesis of building and launching the Holistic Cannabis Academy.
I love that. And there are a couple things I want to trace back on. So, with your personal experience and your providers, were they open to the conversation? Did you get the sense they just didn't have enough information themselves? I know I didn't want to mention it as a pharmacist. One, I didn't want the patients to look at me funny. They didn't want to mention it, I'm sure. And there were just all these kind of unspoken things, and the conversations just weren't being had.
Well, in my case, they did not know, and they really, because this was a VA environment, it just wasn't an option to be
Right.
discussing it. Now, certainly 5 years later now, that has changed somewhat within the VA system. It's certainly still not ideal, but it has loosened up and opened up a little more. And in the 5 years that I've been in this business, I have seen a tremendous change in the mindset of not only the health professional community, but the people, the entities that employ them. Because the reality is, for many providers, they are worried about their licensure, they are worried about their jobs. We have all put a lot of time and money into building our academic careers and building our professional lives, and people don't want to jeopardize it, so I get it.
Right.
uh, but it is, I've noticed really in the last year, I would say, there seems to have been a groundswell of really people getting on board, and I attribute that actually to the explosion and accessibility of hemp derived CBD products.
Yes.
So, whereas people might have been a little nervous about what I call, the high test cannabis, marijuana, they're okay with dipping their toe into hemp derived CBD products, hemp extract products. So it's actually been a good thing for everyone.
That's what I hear at the store a lot. People coming in, buying something for their maybe elderly parent, saying they wouldn't even think of touching marijuana, but this I've eased them into. It's been a gateway.
Absolutely. And it's, it's interesting that I, having been in the nutrition field for a very long time, I have watched different supplements and different nutrition protocols come into the marketplace, and they are greeted with a great deal of interest, and sales are exploding, and people are just clamoring all over it, and I liken this actually to a little bit when fish oils first came on the market. Originally they were, something that you really only got from a physician, or you talked about it in a physician's office. And then it became a much more commonplace product because of the distribution and the accessibility.
Mm.
So as this becomes as hemp products become more mainstream, it is opening up people's eyes to the bigger picture of cannabinoid medicine overall.
Yeah, and you have two programs that reach that education gap, both for professionals and for consumers, because I think that's the camp that everyone's in. Okay, we're on board. We're curious. Who do we go to for information? And you've answered both of those calls. So I guess maybe let's talk about the academy first. Can you share about what makes this program unique?
Sure. The Holistic Cannabis Academy is strictly an online curriculum that we developed with an integrative medicine mindset. There are numerous ways that one can get educated about cannabis, and part of the challenge for people, I think, is there's so much available out there. It's deciding what is valid, what isn't. And our approach in developing our curriculum was, listen, cannabis is great, but it's not the be all and end all. And you have to put it in the context of the healing toolbox with other modalities. So, what has made our program unique is that our modules touch on certainly the foundational science about the endocannabinoid system, and we go into the Ayurvedic and the Vedic history use of cannabis, and a lot of foundational things one should know. But then we also have modules on cannabis and nutrition, cannabis and aromatherapy, cannabis and acupuncture. These are all things that go hand in glove, right? With
Exactly.
using cannabis in more of a holistic healing paradigm. And that's how we think people should really be thinking about this plant.
Hmm.
So that is really, I would say, a hallmark of what makes our program different. And we went out and found faculty members across the country who were experts in those respective fields, because one person can't know everything. And so these are all lectures by these various accomplished faculty. And the modules then also have downloadable education materials, because one of the things I find a lot with online curriculums is like you listen to the lecture and it's great, but then you don't have any tangible materials. So we developed resources for the student themselves, or they may be patient education handouts that you could actually give to a client.
Great.
So each module is kind of a turnkey little package on that given topic.
I love it. That's fascinating.
So it was quite a project in the making, and we have students that are from across the U.S., in Canada, a couple in Europe and New Zealand, but the bulk of them in the U.S. And it's been very interesting to me, and I'm so pleased that we've attracted in kind of a mishmash of people. So we have health coaches, nutritionists, nurse practitioners, yoga instructors, massage therapists, herbalists. Um, we have a couple of people who were drug rehab counselors who are now understanding and looking at cannabis not as a gateway drug, but as an
Mhm.
exit drug to actually help people with their substance abuse. So we really have attracted a variety of different professionals, and we even have had consumers take the program. We offer it also in kind of what we call curated packages. So it's the same modules, but they're bundled into smaller little bits. So you
Mhm.
can take a 3 module package or a 5 module package. So it costs less, it's less of a commitment. And that's really geared for the consumer who really, just wants to know more.
Could you share about the immersion experience? That's how we actually met, because you take this group of people on a tour. It's exactly that, an immersive experience, hands-on learning. And so they've visited the Moon Mother shop. Could you share about that as well?
Sure. And these have been so much fun for me. We've done a few of them now. And this came out of people asking me for more hands on experience. Online is great, and it's what fits into most of our lives because we all have jobs and families. But I've taken a weekend event and created a program where people move through different experiences. So we start off on a Saturday morning, actually, in my kitchen at my beautiful old Victorian home in Longmont, Colorado. And because I come from the food world, and I used to teach at the Culinary Institute of America, and I've done so much recipe development work in my career, I decided to bring people into my kitchen, and we work hands on. They roll up their sleeves, and they do food preparation using hemp extract products, because I'm finding people are saying, I want to know how else I can use these hemp extracts besides just, putting it under my tongue or
Mhm.
taking a capsule. We spend about 2-3 hours in my kitchen doing a variety of recipes. And we actually use that Cannabis Kitchen Cookbook that you mentioned, which was developed using infused oils that one would make from marijuana, but actually a lot of the same principles and cooking methods can apply. So I use that book as kind of our template, and everyone goes home with a copy of it. It's a beautiful hardcover, gorgeous photography cookbook. And then we head up to Fort Collins, where we tour an organic hemp farm, a greenhouse operation. So you really get a sense of that seed to sale, like how is this stuff grown and what does an organic operation really mean?
Mhm.
And then on Sunday, we spend the day in Boulder. We start out at Rebecca's Apothecary, which is a very cool retail store that is staffed by super smart herbalists. And we do a hands-on class. We make CBD actually using the Moon Mother hemp product. The students are making lotions and salves using a CBD tincture. And then we end up the afternoon at Verde Natural, which is a actual recreational dispensary in Boulder. And we do a deep dive educational tour there on marijuana containing products, vape pens, the questions to ask when people go into a dispensary buying edibles and vape pens. I mean, people don't even know where to start.
Mhm.
So the feedback I've gotten on the retreat, they're called the Colorado Cannabis Retreats. The feedback I've gotten is people really like that variety. It's not just about the cooking, it's not just about the farming. It's a
Right.
nice mixture. So we have another one scheduled in mid-August, the 17th and 18th, and September 14th and 15th. So for anybody who's interested in that kind of thing and wants to come enjoy beautiful Colorado, we would love to have you.
Everything you do is so integrative, start to finish.
And I should have said, as you mentioned, Tori, on that Sunday, in between the apothecary class and the dispensary, I bring the group over to Moon Mother Hemp store because it's a good way for people to see a variety of hemp extract products in a retail environment.
Yeah.
So it's your brand, but it's also other brands. And it's interesting, because a lot of towns, of course, don't have that type of a store. And I want people to see how beautiful the packaging is and how it's really represented in a very professional way. And that's really what we're all trying to do,
Right.
elevate this industry so people view it as a healthcare product because that's what it is.
Definitely. I'm curious to know how your specific background as a nutritionist and dietitian has been utilized. Do you see patients in the traditional sense and speak about this?
I don't see patients on a one-on-one basis. I'm just not set up for that anymore.
Right.
But what I do is a lot of speaking to professional groups.
Mhm.
So, for example, just this past week, I did a webinar with a very large organization, a national organization of holistic nutritionists. And so in that type of venue, I'm not only talking to them about the science and the clinical application of the plant, but really helping them understand how they can integrate this into their nutrition counseling practice and getting people to understand that, look, this is a great way to differentiate yourself, whether you're a health coach, you're a nutritionist, a massage therapist, whatever you may be doing. If you now have some cannabis competency, this sets you apart from everybody else and is a way to build your practice. It's a
Yes.
way to attract new clients, build your business, generate more revenue. So when I talk to professional groups, and I actually find there's, a whole group of people that are career changers too. They're maybe they've had a personal experience with cannabis, and they're advocates now, and they're like, I really want to help other people, and I'm thinking about changing my career. So they also need training. And so I really try and position it for people that this is a way to better serve your existing clients and a way to open up your doors and attract new clients as well.
Right. And so I'm curious to know what your vision is for health professionals in cannabis. Um, is it going to be just general knowledge? Everyone knows a piece of the pie? Will we continue to have it as a specialist driven sector? What do you see?
I think we will get to a point where, just like every professional knows something about blood lipid levels. You may not be a cardiac specialist, but you sure as heck know what normal blood lipid levels are. You know what a normal blood pressure should be. And so I think there's going to be a baseline of knowledge that every health professional is going to have to know, because you look foolish if you don't. And then I think from there, people will decide, this is really speaking to me, and I really want to become known as a cannabis coach, a cannabis counselor. And I think, particularly for those in the nutrition profession, this is so in our wheelhouse as nutrition professionals. This is a plant. I mean, it's really no different than talking to your client about the use of herbs and
Right.
the whole category of herbal medicine. This is really in the wheelhouse of the nutrition professional. And I say to when I talk to dietitians and nutritionists, I'm like, listen, if you don't get on board with this, some other group is going to own it, and you will miss out. So I think everyone can have a little piece of it, but I do think this can and should fall into the wheelhouse of the nutrition coach, the nutrition professional.
And we've also talked about pharmacist importance in this space as well, and perhaps genomic testing coming out about cannabinoid profiles. And yeah, we can take it to the next level.
You're absolutely right. Your profession, Tori, is perfectly positioned to to be the expert, because so many people are taking various medications. If you're not well, you're probably on some medication, and then you decide, well, maybe I'm going to try some cannabis, and you have to give some thought to what might that interaction be,
Hmm.
good or bad. It can be an antagonist. It could have a good synergistic effect. And so, as you mentioned, we now are having some more sophisticated tools, testing tools becoming available that are affordable. Genomic testing kits. Probably everyone is familiar with a 23andMe type test where you do the swab test on the inside of your mouth, and now we can know what your genetic profile is and pair that up against several cannabinoids, as well as about 400 different prescription medications. So, what that's going to do for people is eliminate some of the trial and error, that people go through when you go into a dispensary, or even when you're maybe starting with hemp extracts, and there's a lot of trial and error that goes on. This works, but that doesn't. It worked for my friend, but it doesn't work for me. How come? So the more we can drill down to someone's genetic propensity, then we can kind of cut to the chase and save time and money for everyone.
Most definitely. You yourself seem to be keeper of all the resources. I normally ask people if they have resources they'd like to share, but you have created your own. But I'm wondering if you particularly like a certain website or journal. where do you go for your information?
Well, I have the good fortune of having access to obviously a lot of top-notch researchers. I think in terms of for the general lay public who are just maybe kind of starting their journey, I think Project CBD does a really good job. They do their homework and provide access to clinical studies and published research. So I think they do a really good job. Of course, PubMed is another resource that anybody can access. You don't have to be a professional. And so this is more if you really want to do the deep dive on clinical research studies on any given topic. And there are plenty of them out there. People think, oh, there hasn't been much work done. There's been work done for decades.
Mhm.
Not a lot of it in the US. Most of it has been done out of the US, but by top-notch facilities and researchers. So those are some resources that come to my mind when right off the top of my head.
Great. And so, as I understand it, you have a special discount for listeners who may want to sign up for your program.
Yes, absolutely. Tori's going to put a web link in the show notes, and what that is going to provide you is a significant discount for the Academy full-on practitioner program. For anyone who is interested, it will give you a price of it's about 25% off of what is the normal full price of the program. So it's a really good deal. I'm also including a copy of that beautiful uh, cookbook that I mentioned earlier, the Cannabis Kitchen Cookbook. So anybody that signs up using that link, I will send you a copy of the book as well. And for anybody that may be interested in the retreats, Tori will also have the link to those as well. We do early bird pricing specials. So right now, if you are interested in the August program, you can still get the early bird pricing of $425. And that is a great value. I have to say, as I have surveyed all of the students who have just gone through, one of the ongoing comments I've gotten is it was a really good value for my money and my time because we're all busy, right? And so people have flown in from all over the US to come for these weekends. So I wanted to make it a really good use of their time and their money. So those two programs you can certainly access through the links in the show notes.
Wow, my jaw just dropped. That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing this with us. I myself had been looking for a course, didn't know where to start. People are popping up with them, but like you said, this is really an integrative, holistic approach, which I totally appreciate. So thank you so much, Donna.
Right. And the one last thing I should mention when taking that full practitioner program, there is a final exam. It's 125 questions. It's quite rigorous. I have many students that have to take it more than once, but once you pass that, then we issue a certificate of training as a holistic cannabis practitioner. So there's a badge, an icon digital badge that we provide. So it's a way for you to market yourself, and it shows that you demonstrated a certain level of competency. So it's because when people are looking for a cannabis coach, a cannabis counselor, they want to know that they're talking to somebody that has had some measured level of training. So it's a nice way to kind of promote yourself.
Definitely. Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to mention on this platform?
I think we really covered everything. For people that are listening and have been on the fence about this, and a lot of people are still a little worried about the stigma. And depending on where you live, that stigma may be more prominent than in other places. But I can only say that there's very few times in life where there's a huge paradigm shift that occurs in healthcare. And this is one of those times where this is really going to be a game changer. And so the conversation we'll be having 5 years from now will be quite different. And this will be a normal part of the healthcare conversation. So if you've been thinking about it, the train has left the station. So be one of the first ones to get on board.
I love it. Totally. Thank you so much for your wisdom and generosity, Donna.
Well, thanks, Tori. This was really enjoyable for me to share what I've been doing with your audience.
And I'll see you soon at the store, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Cannabis, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and give a 5-star rating. You can find more information about mindfulness and what I do at tidytor.com. Follow the Cannabis over to Instagram and connect with me through direct message anytime. Big love.